All right, good morning, everybody. Another happy Saturday as the year dwindles down here. Already Christmas music, Christmas. My wife watched that, the Hallmark stuff with my mother-in-law and my mom. Those Christmas love stories and all that crap all over. But, where the holidays are right around the corner now. And this year has really just flew by. It feels like yesterday was summer, and now we're talking end of the year stuff. So we got some interesting things in the next month or so as we close out this year, and then it's going to be extremely interesting to see how it all starts up as we start a fresh year next year. I know it sounds. I guess a lot of times, sometimes you get those round numbers, Dow 30,000, and it just becomes an important number psychologically. A lot of times that happens with a new year. People come in, close out the year on an extremely bullish tone, and then all of a sudden New Year rolls around and you got a whole different environment. So it's always interesting to see how the year starts off, a new year starts off. It was actually a big thing. The January indicator was a huge thing when I got into this game. But now you can take all that crap and throw it out the window because this market does its own thing. Just when you think there's some sort of trend out there, that goes out the window. So, but it'll be interesting coming off, a pretty decent year, especially in these growth names, how we started off in a brand new year. All right, so today we didn't even have a webinar set up. I was contemplating maybe taking a couple of Saturdays off with the holidays and all, but what's the point in that? So no real topic. We'll discuss anything that's on your mind. I know a couple of you already had some sentiment indicator questions. That's totally fine. Strategy, trading off flow, any of that stuff. Now is the time to ask it. There's no such thing as a dumb question in this game. So don't be embarrassed to ask anything. It's the only way you learn things, if you ask me. All right? And we'll also go over names, okay? Like I said, a lot of interesting names, a lot of names that just have come a long, long way. Like this one I have up on the screen right now, the SQ Square, which has just been an absolute monster. And you can see on the chart there, I mean, sometimes the chart doesn't even do it justice. An absolute cash register. So we'll talk about some of those names as we close out the year and how to maybe position there. And like I said, anything on your mind, feel free to ask. Very quickly, let me get this out of the way early on. And this way, if you have any questions, I could take your questions regarding any of this stuff. This is WallStreetJesus.com, W-A-L-S-T, not the whole word street, S-T, Jesus.com, like my Twitter handle. That's where basically you can find any information on any of the topics we discussed today, even from strategy to the type of stuff I focus on, the type of stuff members focus on, and what we look at every day in the Steam Room. This is the Steam Room. For those of you who are new, when we refer to the Steam Room, this is it right here. Okay, basically a chat trading room. We're looking at aggressive option order flow. It's a lot different than unusual activity. And if you have any questions about that, feel free to ask. But basically, we're day in, day out trying to sift through some of the more aggressive activity out there and looking to pick the best of the best, the cleanest action of the bunch, the most aggressive activity of the bunch to suit each trader's needs individually, okay? And that's another thing I always stress, something that I may get excited about for my style may not be suited for you, okay? So that's one thing we really try to push in the room to try to figure out what you need to look for. So you don't have to rely on anybody else, any buy-sell recommendations, trying to tail some other trader in there. There's no reason to do any of that stuff, okay? No reason to do any of that stuff. And that's the main purpose of this room here. So if you have any questions, you could go to WallStreetJesus.com. Here's the best part, the strategy section. If you click on strategy, quick little write-ups, okay? No 20-page articles, quick little write-ups on just reviewing some of the day trades, okay? So if you're a day trader, you can see how I use the information. Some of the other day traders in the room trade off it, both equities and the options, okay? Also, other ways you can utilize Wise Guy Sweeper activity for not just trading signals. I mean, sentiment is, I think, a huge part of the edge that comes out of the Wise Guy flow, okay? And you can see, like, here's introduce the most powerful intraday indicator on the planet, more for trading. And then we got stuff like, you know, using Wise Guy flow to gauge smart money sentiment. How do you know a bet? How do you know if an order's a bet or a hedge and doesn't matter? Even the simplest stuff, the sweeps, which I know with the web these days, all you got to do is Google it. But if you want a little breakdown of the terminology, we have that there as well. Different ways that I've seen traders that I've traded around use this information and trade successfully. That's here as well. So you can go to the strategy section and you'll find all that there. Okay. If you have an interest in giving it a shot and maybe learn something new or anything like that, we got a couple new things here, fairly new. We got a 3-day trial where you don't have to put a credit card up or anything. For 3 days, you will get access to all the flow. The filter, meaning you can go and search, which a lot of people find extremely valuable. In other words, you can go in here and type square, okay, and you got, you know, put, calls, any, hit the search button, and all the activity that hit the board, okay, and I'll go into that a little bit later, but all the activity that hit the Wise Guy tote board, as we call it, will all be on here, both puts and calls. So you can get an idea of where they started buying, where the most aggressive buying came in, what still may be open, if you want to go look at open interest, that sort of thing. All right, so you'll get access to all that. The only thing you won't have access to during this free trial is being able to comment in the room, okay, because it is a chat room where a lot of people comment throughout the day. There's several channels, but here it is right here, okay? So all traders in here sharing their views on flow coming in, what they're looking up, what they're looking at setup-wise, names they're looking at, things they're seeing, and you got a lot of decent traders out there. I think more importantly, there's a diverse group of traders. I think that's important because it's very hard to just find one trading style that suits everybody. It's nearly impossible. So you got a diverse group of traders, from selling premium, selling puts when they see aggressive flow come in, buying directional calls, forget options completely, just trading the equities. Okay, that's another misconception we get a lot, is that you have to trade options. That couldn't be further from the truth. Okay, to be honest, I think there might be even more of an edge out of this stuff if you're an equities trader. Okay, and then we got traders that just trade futures. All kidding aside, that just trade futures. They'll trade S&P futures. They'll look for certain spots where the flow may diverge from what price is doing, and look for entries in ES, SPY, and that sort of thing. All right, so a diverse group of traders in here you can learn a lot from. Like I said, the only thing you won't be able to do with that free trial is comment, because I'll be honest with you, we had a free trial where all the options were open. We got a lot of riffraff in there, just, you know, counting their bearish points and all their nonsense. We didn't want to be bothered in that. Okay, we just wanted to get rid of that completely. Also, and this is, as much as people love talking with other traders, I've come across a lot of members who don't want to be bothered, and I understand it. I totally understand it. They really don't want any distraction. They want no noise. Okay, they just want the flow. They want my commentary on the flow. Okay, and basically it's as simple as clicking this filter tab, where you're going to get all my commentary, all the action, okay, that I'm commenting on, and none of the other stuff. Okay, and on top of that, I'm broadcasting throughout the whole day, live. So I'm sharing screen and audio as the flow is coming in. So you have access to that as well. Okay, so like I said, if you have any questions, you know where to hit me up, Lucci. But you'll find pretty much all the answers here. So we got the free trial. Then if you're interested, 50% off the first month. Okay, you get access to, again, every channel, audio, video, all the webinars. Also, I get this question a lot, you get access to private Twitter with the membership. Okay, it's not, you don't have to pay extra for that. Now, private Twitter is all the flow, open interest, some sentiment stuff. Obviously, the main ingredient that's lacking there is the audio video feature, where I'm sharing, my feelings and the interpretation I'm taking. I get off the flow that's coming in real time. All right. But if you're on the road, private Twitter can be very useful. And, you got a big group of Twitter fans out there, including myself. It'd be valuable at times. So that's included. Also, one last thing, if you're interested in a cheaper route, a more affordable route, I mean, let's be honest, sometimes if you're a smaller trader or whatever the case may be, you may not be able to afford something like this after you do the 3-day trial. We did spin off private Twitter into a separate entity. So basically you get this for $60 a month, $59.99, and you have access to private Twitter, and just private Twitter. Okay? But like I said, I want to stress, with the membership, the premium membership, you get private Twitter included. You don't have to pay extra for that. All right, so now that we got the whole sales crap out of the window, like I said, if you have any questions, hit me up at any time. Don't worry about it. We could get into the fun stuff and talk a little bit about the market. And I guess what I'll do is take some questions as I go through a couple things, rather than wait to the end. And this way we can dive into a couple different things. All right, let's take the market first off. I think it becomes really interesting here in where, what do we see? Do we see that melt up, grind higher sort of into the end of the year? Or, which I think can be also a strong possibility, and it's a little early to tell yet, but sort of that grind higher, but more of a choppier grind higher. And I kind of like that, and a lot of shorter term traders like that, because if you're a big fan of buying weakness and selling the rips, that quick turnover, and a lot of us like to do that because for me, you take on less risk, especially on the options front. In other words, the more you're holding on to calls and options, you got also time value to worry about, right? They drain your premium. Sometimes when a stock just does absolutely nothing, it doesn't even have to go lower per se, you lose time value. So for me, the less risky trade, especially in the market that's rallied significantly like we've seen, is that quick turnover trade. In other words, similar to what we just saw, you get a little bit, this is why I think this one annoys me, but you get a little bit of a pullback, okay, and we see the flow really start to ramp up. Like into this down day, guys, and those of you who are members know exactly what I'm talking about, they were buying the living daylights out of things, okay, and it just set up such a solid entry for that quick turnover trade. In other words, looking to buy weakness, looking for some decent names, strong names that have come in a bit. You see some flow there, and then you get that snapback the next day or so. Sometimes, a lot of times the same day, in where you can lock in that quick gain. Okay, you're not hitting that home run. Sometimes you get lucky and do. But you're seeing a nice profit, obviously, because you're buying weakness. You're buying when everybody out there selling their shit, basically, and you're buying calls on the cheap. And then when everyone's bum rushing back into them, like we saw with the gap up, you got that juice to sell into. So that is also a strong possibility from this point, and that could be a really good thing if that trading style suits you. It could be really frustrating if you need, or you're the type of trader looking for that a little bigger of a move. Because what will happen there, you'll hear a lot of traders refer to that type of environment as chop, right? You hear that word a lot. Chop can be a good thing if you're nimble and if you can be quick, and if you're looking to buy weakness and not chase strength. Chop could be really good. But if you're looking for that sustained move higher, that next leg higher, and even though you bought on a dip, you get that little bit of a snapback and then it rolls over again, that could get really, really frustrating. So I think that's what we need to look at here going into next week. What does this market do? Basically what we saw, like I said, on this down day, we saw a ton of buying come in. They didn't buy everything, as I was saying. In other words, a lot of times they'll just spray the whole board. They'll buy every FANG name, every high beta name. They'll just tattoo all the big stuff. They didn't do that, but they bought a lot of things, okay? And then we get the next day gap up, and we saw sentiment go from, towards the bearish side to all of a sudden everyone getting giddy on the bullish side. So there was a strong possibility that a lot of the juice was at least going to stall in coming days. And we saw that Friday. And again, sentiment has been moving so quickly, and I think that has been a good thing for this market. We went from bearish to bullish to back down to, back to neutral in literally 2 days. So we got that little bit of a pull Friday, expiration, November OPEX, big OPEX, washed out a lot of people who were on getting a little greedy or chased that big gap up, that big green day prior. So that was a good thing. Now I think going into next week, we're going to see some of the signs of what type of climate we may be in. Do they start selling strength? Do we see the flow really start to die down on green days, and maybe, you get an intraday pull and they look to buy that? Or do they just press, as we like to say? And that's basically, they ignore the conditions and just continuously sweep call side in the hot stuff. All right, so we'll see that next week. Still some earnings out there, a couple big names, popular names, solid names. CRM is one in particular that we're always interested in. And just look at this thing. It's been an animal. It's been an animal. The one bad thing about CRM, and there's quite a few names that caught a ton of action that have had this same problem, if you missed that entry, it never really gave you a good-looking entry again. This entry here was a solid entry. We saw some decent call buying come in to a lot of these type of names: the underbelly attack, Adobe, Avgo, WDC, Autodesk. If you guys remember at that time, the webinar that we were talking about how the underbelly may be the best spot to look at as far as new names. And I stopped looking at CRM because the flow was just smaller momentum type players, and just Friday caught action again, and I was like, oh my God, this thing's 107, 108. I remember it was just 95 the last time I looked at it. So there's been a powerful stock, and a lot of times going into the number, you'll see call activity, you'll see a rally. It's been a strategy we've used all year where you see CRM flow come in prior to earnings, like a good couple of weeks before earnings, play the run-up into earnings, and then maybe leave a runner into the number just in case it craps out, and that strategy has been efficient. So this is a very interesting name going into the quarter on a bunch of different levels. One, if there's weakness, is that, another decent entry for the name? Do they come in just bombing call side on any weakness they see, like we've seen in some names like Avgo. If you guys remember, they sold that name off on the quarter, and they came in hammering December calls. That's about a month or so ago. I lose track of time. So, and or do they knock the ball out of the park and find a way to go higher, even with this rally already priced in? So interesting name there. A lot of these names have been hot. Splunk, 2 quarters in a row, they did the same exact thing, and it panned out. You had incredible action. Not this past quarter, they just announced on Thursday, but the quarter prior to that, that was this gap here. There was a ton of action that took place this whole consolidation here. Okay, and you basically needed earnings. You had a couple tradable rallies, but nothing really clean like the CRM. You needed earnings to get that move. They just did it again this quarter. This time, it was a little bit better as far as the setup because you had a nice pull, and they started buying right off that pull. And you had a tradable move into the quarter, and then if you left a runner or a piece, you got a monster move off the number. Monster. So a lot of these things have, performed nicely like that. You don't always get that opportunity. Like I said, the Splunk the quarter before wasn't as clean, and that could happen a lot as well. All right, so we still have some earnings to keep an eye on, some interesting names, and the flow is just pretty much the same thing we've been seeing. You got names like Square that just continue to catch activity. A lot of it is rolling, okay? I mean, that's totally normal when you get a move like this. But, I mean, they were buying this Square. I remember months back, they were buying Novembers. They were tattooing Jan calls. And you're talking about just a huge move since then. From the summer, right when the summer started, the flow started to really heat up. And this thing just hasn't looked back. Went quiet a couple times, but just has been strong throughout. And you can see Friday, let me pull it up here. Here's the action on Friday. A couple smaller stuff that didn't hit the board, but you get a decent picture here of what they were doing. March 55s, some Jan 50s, December 50s, catching some small sweepers, probably rolling out some Novembers, even some closer to the money stuff. So action again on Friday in Square, looking for a continuation into year end and possibly early first quarter. All right, and you can see here, the flow just back in June. Here's the Jan calls. Yeah, they were just really, for this type of name, they were going insane. All right, so we're still seeing the flow. That PayPal actually had a dip, shockingly enough, on Friday, down $1 and change. There hasn't been too many dips in this name, and every time it dips, okay, and I'm talking about intraday dips. That's what I'm referring to here as a dip in PayPal. Friday, it all took us by surprise. There was an actual pullback in the name. Okay, that closed down. Prior to that, you get these intraday dips, and then all of a sudden sweepers come out, sweep up the weakness, and has been an incredible trade intraday. June calls in focus, all sorts of different things. And if you guys remember me explaining last week, we were actually talking about in a couple webinars back, the one pullback where they came in and sold puts in droves. I mean, just plastering the bid. Put side, which for those of you who are not too option savvy, that's an extremely bullish trade. Basically calling bottom on just a 2-day pull in PayPal. I forget where that was exactly. You could do a Twitter search and find out, because I posted on Twitter. Might have been this here. So you could see it looks tiny, You had right here a little bit of a pullback. Oh, that was earnings? Let me see. Might go back right here. A little bit of a pullback, and then they just hammered the bids on the puts. And she never looked back. All right, so the most important thing here is there's a lot of people who have, when you hear them talk about these names for the most part, a lot of people are sitting on profitable positions. Okay, that's what's going on. When you hear people ranting and raving about these names, for the most part, people have some runners, people are sitting on some profitable positions from decent entry, weeks back, months back. I think as far as a trade is concerned, going forward, what you want to look at is, again, that maybe intraday pull, that 1-2 day pull you get in these things, if you get them, and if you see sweeper activity come in and support that weakness, that quick turnover trade, or at least some sort of risk management strategy where if you're looking for more than that quick turnover trade, you have some sort of stop in place if it's on the equity side. Again, some sort of management on the option side, because I think the issue you may run into, the problem you may run into, it hasn't been a problem yet, but could arise at any given point in time. You buy one of these pullbacks, okay, where you get a little breather and you got, a decent entry for that quick turnover play. Some flow comes in and you're holding for more and they get caught in a legitimate pull. Okay, you really don't want that to happen. Why? Because the risk reward at this point, it's not favorable. You know what I mean? You're looking for what? A continuation of a grind up here into year end and risk profit taking and decent downside if the year wants to come out. So I think that's the issue with a lot of these things you face. They still could be traded. A lot of people trade them, especially on the day trade side. But I think as far as flow is concerned, that's the only interpretation we can get out of the flow. It's a continuation type play. When they're there to support weakness, you can see a bounce, but no more than that. Okay? And that goes for any name like the square, the PayPal, that looks like this. All right. Also, we've been seeing flow, dare I say, get ready for it, in stuff like Twitter. Okay? And I hate to talk about Twitter flow. All right? And we've all lost money in Twitter somehow, some way, at one point in time. Okay? Obviously. Me, I've been solely a day trader, even though I've been taking some of the sharper action for a swing here and there. I've been solely day trading. That's been my bread and butter. And even I lost money on Twitter, not just day trading. I tucked away some Twitter in my daughter's account, an account I put away for my 9-year-old, where I don't want to touch, just buy and hold type thing. And she's buried in Twitter at higher levels. All right, nice little comeback here, but I buried my daughter. The good thing is she owns Facebook at a really nice entry as well, so softens the blow. But my point of that story is Twitter has all given it to us nicely, okay? That being said, there always is some Twitter, there's always Twitter flow, there's always Twitter sweeper activity when there's chatter, rumors of a takeover, okay? Some of it has been a solid trade. In other words, if you got in when the Twitter sweepers just started to heat up, okay, and sold when everybody was hoping and betting on some sort of buyout coming in, you could have had some decent trades out of it. All right, but a lot of people fall in love with the story of Twitter one day getting bought out. All right, so there's been a lot of chatter activity, speculation type activity forever. The difference this time around, there was some decent Twitter flow into the quarter, into earnings. Okay, even when it looked like crap, they were buying Twitter. Like you had some pullbacks where people were like, oh boy, here we go again. and there was some decent flow into that pullback. That's always a positive sign. Back then, the problem was we had earnings, so we don't know, could be shorts hedging their positions into the quarter, right? Somebody short Twitter, they don't want to cover, so what do? They buy some calls, and they very cheaply can hedge that bearish position. So we don't know that for sure when the action catches earnings. That's the problem. But post-earnings is a different story. And what we have been seeing, we saw some Twitter flow right out of the gate when they reported into the gap up. Then what we were trying to focus on is when this thing breathes, okay, there's going to be some profit taking. We know there's going to be profit takers in Twitter, okay? When that happens, what does the flow look like then? That's going to give us a better idea of if Twitter's looking any different than what we've been seeing flow-wise. And lo and behold, we saw buying come into this pullback. And that hasn't been the case in the past. In other words, they would buy when the momentum was there. People wanted in and were trading when the juice was there and the stock was going higher. But the first sign of the juice coming out, sweepers would just disappear, or even the flow would turn bearish. You know what I mean? This time around, they were buying this weakness, and they were a little bit early. They started buying, I think it was on this candle here. They started buying into this pullback, and then it went a little bit lower. They were continuing to sweep call side. Lower again, continued to sweep call side. Bottomed out a little, found a little base here. We continue to see them sweep call side. And it really hasn't stopped. All the way up to Friday, throughout the day, there were some positions rolling. Okay, in other words, they were taking some of their November positions that expire, and they were pushing them out. There was some of that, but there was also some clean buying within the flow out in, some December, some Januaries, caught some decent action. And that tells us that there's a bullish tint around the Twitter flow. Okay? So I just wanted to share that with you guys. And one thing you have to keep in mind as well, be careful chasing this thing. Okay? She's a pig, she's a pig, she's a pig until she's not a pig anymore. And chasing Twitter has been an awful, awful trade. Even when she's strong. What happens is you'll come in, you get a little move just like this. Okay, it doesn't look like much, right? But in my eyes, this is chasing Twitter. You come in at the end of Friday off a green day, off a green move, buy some calls at the highs, and then Monday morning she washes and you're ready to kill somebody. Wait for that wash at the least if you're looking to buy at the higher level. At least. Don't chase green. You miss it, you miss it. There's a ton of other stocks out there. All right? But I think that's the most important thing. You want to wait, not only as far as chasing, but you're getting a better price on the calls. You're buying when riffraff is not all junked up because Twitter's green and they want to own it. When you're buying red, you're buying when they're getting shaken out of their calls. Okay? And options, when you're trading options, especially shorter term stuff, your entry is crucial. There's no way you're going to narrow it down to get the best entry possible, but when you're looking to buy stuff that hasn't moved yet, as opposed to chasing a move, you will find a lot more success, especially if you're looking for that bigger move. If you're looking to short-term trade it, flip it, scalp it, obviously that's a different story. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about if you're looking to take a swing in Twitter, even being a couple weeks, you want to make sure you try to get the best entry possible. It only helps. And I think it's worth being patient with this type of stuff. All right, so again, names like Twitter catching flow, the hot names like Square, PayPal catching flow. We've even had some under-the-radar stuff like Buff, okay? Interestingly enough, I knew this name prior to the sweeper that just hit this thing because it had action a while ago. Blue Buffalo Pet Products caught as an aggressive call sweeper that possibly we'll ever see just recently at a real nice spot. And, you know, if you could trade the equity or your approach is where you're willing to put in what you want to lose as far as premium is concerned on the call side, if that's an approach you like to take, which is a solid approach now, I think, this was a perfect play. You know, they came in off this, and you guys hear me talk about this a lot. I hate chasing this move. Okay, when the name does this and there's flow that comes in up here, I'm just not a big fan of it. All right, I like to wait and see this happen and then them come in. Okay, and then a lot of times I feel that's where the biggest edge is, because it's basically when you're seeing aggressive buying come in to a pattern like that, price action like that, it's telling us there's a change in character, a change in trend, right? The smart money is looking at a different approach than what price has been showing us. And a lot of times you get this. Sometimes you don't get as much as you would like, but a lot of times on the better looking action, you get some sort of move like this where you can sell into trim, trail, raise stops, whatever the hell you're trading out there. But this buff was a nice looking play. I just want to show you the action there so you know what the hell they did and why. Again, forget the name. I just want to show you the action and why it was significant. By the way, I think these are the calls, right? So they were buying them 2. I think they went to 4. But let me see. Here it is. All right. So this is basically the breakdown of the sweeps. And you guys remember, right? It wasn't just one sweep. Okay? Sometimes one sweep is enough in a name like this. But it wasn't just one sweep. These were the 3 top sweepers that came in one after the other. You see 1520. Oops. 1520. Let me get on my Madden pen. 1520. 1521 here, right? 1521.02 milliseconds. So boom, boom, boom. All right, and then we're buying the December 25 calls. And here's another thing I love to see, and you'll see it a lot of times with these less liquid names on the option front. A lot of times these things are as liquid as the sea on the equity side. On the option front, they're really thin. But they paid $1.89, right? $1.95, and up to $2.03. So he just couldn't give 2 shits about what price he was paying. He had to own it. You know what I mean? He had to own it. He wasn't sitting on a bid, waiting patiently for a good entry. And that's the type of stuff we like to focus on in the steam room, for those of you who aren't familiar with what we do. This basically is the VWAP. In other words, the total price. You can see 32% at 190, 24% 185. Basically breaks down. Trade Alert breaks it down for you, so you can see an average of what he paid. All right, but that's what made this significant. They opened the largest position of open interest. I remember the day as it was yesterday. This was the best sweeper on the board that day. There wasn't a lot of action. Wasn't a lot of buying on that day. And this order stood out like a sore thumb. So it was real aggressive activity. Let me clean this up now. Okay. All right, so, and moral of the story is we're seeing some quality action in names like this. Okay, and we've been seeing that. That's been a pattern in the market, especially of late. You guys remember that MTN Vail? Here's a good example, too, of the type of pattern we like to focus on. You know, you had a nice little, this is MTN, by the way, Mary, Tom, Nancy, back in October. You had a nice pullback here, right? Hot name. Nice pullback. Then the action came in right here, right off the pullback. Perfect entry, and you got more than enough of a move to trade. Actually, still looks good here. taking a little breather. All right, so even the under the radar type stuff, catching names. It hasn't been just the big names out there, which can be a real pain in the ass. You know what I mean? When they're just continuously sweeping Facebook and Apple, once you catch that entry, then after that, like I said, you're looking for that quick turnover trade. I hate, I'm just not a big fan of climbing the ladder. Let's say Facebook action comes in, I'm just using round numbers here, 90, right? And that's where initial action heats up, right at $90. Okay, it runs to 94 and change, you lock in some gain. And then you see action come in at 95. I hate climbing that ladder continuously, even though it's catching activity, going up in price. Why'd you sell it in the first place? You know what I mean? You could have rolled out, you could have sold 3/4 of the position, left it, you could have done a number of things. I hate climbing that ladder because that's where you get into trouble. And now you could get away with it. But when this market is not in all-out raging bull mode like it is, it's going to punish some people. I'm not talking about correction either. I'm just talking about maybe some lengthy consolidation. It's going to punish a lot of traders getting in bad habits right now. And I think climbing the ladder is one of them. That's why I'm a big fan of initial activity. Not only is it the best activity, but it gets you in the mode of buying the best stuff at the right time, always. You know what I mean? Always. It's like that golf swing, and you go in the cage and swinging the baseball bat. You want to get that swing perfected to where you don't think about it, right? It becomes a habit, and I think a lot of traders neglect that when a market goes in their favor, and eventually it's going to cost them. It's going to cost them. All right, so also the underbelly of tech has been incredible. I know a lot of you guys like that group. I do as well. We had the Adobe just explode. We spoke about that. A name to keep an eye on here is Higher. Okay, so you should be in it already if you like it. Otherwise, you're chasing. But this WDC hasn't got out yet. Okay, it's been in this consolidation. WDC was an animal. Okay, you could put it up there with the microns and everything else earlier than in the year. Then that Toshiba news started hovering over it. Remember that Toshiba stuff still there? The flow really went dead. WDC was a really active name. And then the flow really went dead ever since that Toshiba stuff has been hovering over its head. We'd see some nice buyers into the pullback, per se, and then just disappear. We really started to see some nice action build up again here. We saw an April missile, I think it was, at the bottom of this range. I'll find it for you in a second. And then just recently more activity come in. And it's had a nice little move here. Actually had a nice move the next day, I think it was. Yeah, right here. So she's creeping up here, and they bought a couple of different lines. Let me get that action, because I know you guys like that name. Has always been a great trade, okay? What a lot of people are looking at here is catching that big move, catching that Adobe move. You know what I mean? The Avgo move, where it busts out of this lengthy consolidation. And we see that a lot. We see flow dry up. We see action start to heat up. And then, boom. You just get that huge move. We saw it in names like Win. That was in, such a lengthy consolidation. And then finally bust out, and the flow exploded. Again, names like Adobe. We saw names like, I'm trying to think of, Intel, Micron going back even further. So we've seen it in a lot of different spots, and that's what a lot of, especially Steam Room members, are looking for here. Okay, I will say this though, again, not to be the wet blanket. If you're looking for that move, you cannot be, in my opinion, in calls that expire next week. Okay, you could, but you need to get lucky. And those are the people who are losing money off a solid flow in names like this. Because what do they want? They want to be cheap about it, right? They don't want to spend the money and go out with a decent amount of time. Yeah, they want to catch a monster move in weeklies. They want their cake and eat it too type thing. And if that's your strategy, that's okay, fine and dandy. But your risk management there better be that you're putting in very little amount of money. You're okay with it going to zero, and you're hoping that one big move, or you're planning for that one big move to make up for several losers. That's the only way you could take that approach, in my opinion. The more prudent way, okay, the smarter approach, the more efficient approach would be go out, give yourself some time. So if this little rally here does come in, you don't have to panic and stress yourself out and worry about losing not only your profits but everything else in there, because you're running out of time as well. All these names, guys, Micron, all these names that have had big moves, if you had the time behind your bet, you would have been in great shape and stress-free. Okay? It would have bothered you when the pullbacks were there, but you wouldn't have panicked. We've seen so many people just, believe it or not, lose money in Micron. It sounds weird now, right? I remember there were people making comments, Micron, the Micron flow, they were calling it premium burn. Micron. And saying, yeah, nobody makes money in Micron calls, where it was just a matter of having enough time to catch that move, okay? And you weren't talking about a crash in Micron. You were talking about a normal breather in Micron. What am I doing? Oh. Right? This here was just, I mean, you had a huge move, okay? And this right here, this is what they were calling bad mouth in the Micron flow. So if you had enough time, if you were looking to buy the weakness, like similar to the WDC, even if you were early, you've been more than rewarded, obviously. All right, so that's the point I just want to make with this WDC. It looks appetizing, right? The move is all there. You got the consolidation. Just make sure you have enough time there. A lot of players in the steam room, what they've been doing, they had the November 24 calls initially, and what they did is they locked in profit and rolled a piece out. Okay, that was the easy solution. And then you could always revisit if you get it, if it's stuck in this consolidation, right? If this is not the move, you can always revisit. So here is the WDC action, so you guys get an idea of what the hell I'm talking about here. Let's see. Hold on a second. I want to get that good-looking guy. Where is he? Oh, he's up to where I'm going too far. Right here. All right, so this is the action that really caught our eye, and it's pretty obvious. I mean, look at these things. Back on September 14th, okay, 2 missiles, 1.3 million, 700. All right, so that was on 9/14. That expired. That's done. Oh, here's the other guy, right? 9/28. You had some more there. Hold on. And here's the recent action right here. 11/10. This was the one that set up another trade on it. The 11/24s. Okay, that's what a lot of people played for 400, which was again a nice trade. If it was you were playing just for a trade, 11/24 expiration is just a trade. I think you have to lock some in and roll some out, or leave a small piece. You have to, in my opinion. You may get away with it again in this market, but you make a habit of that, and you're going to get hit over the head. And also, you December sweep. There was also a small sweeper that didn't hit the board. That wasn't too shabby as well. All right, so those are the 2 rounds of action there. And you see the difference in time too, right? 9/28, 11/10. They both were great trades, both of them. And both, the majority of action might catch the big move if it does. What is that? Bear with me. I'm not good at this Madden drawing stuff. Okay. Okay, so basically that's what they're doing. They're buying 910 was this dip here, right? Oh, maybe this dip here. Nope, 910. One of these dips. I can't tell them these things are swim charts. But they're buying this whole into this consolidation. Okay, that's basically, and then you have the action heat up right here again. All right, so we got names like that still that look great. We've also, okay, not just talk about some of the winners. There was a loser. It was a loser. Hold on, they haven't expired yet, but it was more, well, still significant. But here, Ryder. Okay, you want to see what a loser looks like? I'm talking about a loser, where the flow is just wrong. No excuses. Ryder. And decent action. Decent action. All right. Now, one excuse you can make is that the initial activity, blah, 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 was here, had a run up. This was the first breather, and they hit it again over here. Okay. That's the one excuse you could make if you're looking for any. But other than that, it's just, for me, it's just a loser. It happens. And as a trader, you're going to run into losers. Okay, so what happened here was they sold some November puts that are gone. They opened up the largest position of open interest in December calls that are still open as far as I know. Look great, right? Look great. And the trannies and the trucking group in particular just got annihilated last week. Annihilated. And there was actually, not all of it stuck, but it was spec flow. There was some November flow, and the stock really took off Thursday into the Tesla event. It looks like they dumped half of it anyway. They expired November's, they were. Okay, but, you know, it had a decent December bet, opened up the largest position of open interest, and, you know, he just happened to get it wrong. That group got run over. All right, so we got a good look at a loser. The reason why I bring this up, there's more losers out there. This was solid flow. You understand? When you deal with just the better action out there, obviously you're going to run into less performances like Ryder. Okay? When you start moving around and looking for more ideas, you're going to have more winners. You're also going to have more losers. That's totally fine. But the reason I bring this up, this had exceptional, really good-looking order, and he got run over. All right, let me run into some of the names. Throw some names at me that you guys are looking at. You could even ask, you know, questions on anything else for that matter. Sentiment, flow, strategy, whatever's on your mind. Somebody brought up, I don't want to forget you, Brian brought up the FANG sentiment that I started paying attention to recently. And it's just basically something we look at. We've been looking at a FANG put the call, per se. Okay, so that's basically all it is, Brian. It's giving us an idea of when maybe the public money is getting a little too excited on, it's not just the Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Netflix, Google. I put in there NVIDIA, Tesla, all the common names that retail is just obsessed with, okay? And basically created a basket where we measure on a day-to-day basis, you know, the puts versus calls, just like any put-to-call indicator out there, and seeing if there's anything to it. You know, and the reason why we wanted to start paying attention to that is because, again, now more than ever, you have so many traders just, they don't want to know about anything else, okay? They don't want to know about Buff and how aggressive that sweeper was. You know, even names like a WDC, they have no interest. But if they see a Netflix sweeper, you know, even though there's been 665 of them, or a Facebook, you know, sweeper, Apple sweeper, you know, they jump on it. They jump on it. You know, they get excited about it. So when I see that type of emotion right? When you see that type of emotion from the retail crowd there, um, yeah, a lot of times there could be some sentiment stuff that you can look at, in a contrarian way. So just, again, more stuff to look at. Unless there's flow there, I'm not trading off anything. So just something to give us an idea of when. So in other words, put it this way, Brian, in simple English. Let's say we get a little bit of a pull, right? And the sentiment stuff we look at already is telling us that the retail crowd is a little too bearish, right? They're nervous. And then we see sentiment and the FANG names get into a bearish extreme. That would be just a cherry on top, basically. That if we see flow come in to those FANG names, it probably sets up a nice risk-reward scenario on the call side, on the long side. So that's basically how I use it. That's what we're working with. Brian's asking what put the call number would be extreme. That's what I'm trying to get an idea of. I should have looked at this a lot more closely earlier, but I don't like to just. You got to understand, if you don't know who I am, I've been in this game long enough. I've seen a lot of useless shit out there, and the more useless shit you look at on a day-to-day basis, the more it becomes a problem for you as a trader in this game. So I'm very reluctant to, add or take serious any additional stuff unless I really think there's value there. So basically, that's the thing I'm working on. We have averages we can look at. Like, I'll give you an idea here. Let me see what I do. I posted this, I think, on Twitter, right? Let me see. But, like a 22-day average, Trade Alert gives us and stuff like that. Oh, I put it in with music. See how fancy I get these days? So here, this is what he's talking about. So basically, here's the 22-day average. You see, 0.58. So it gives you an idea of what it's been like over the past month. So other than that, we haven't really determined a set number. I'm sure you're looking for the comparison, like to put the call, right? Whereas 1 would be a high reading, And guys, everything, you got to understand where I'm coming from. And it has nothing to do with you as a trader, but for me, it's all about sweepers. I don't care what else is going on in the world. You know what I mean? If there's aggressive sweeper activity, okay, again, it's not the same as unusual activity. It's not the same as chatter flow, right? Rumor flow. It's not the same as big blocks going off. So there's a big difference there. But for me, aggressive sweeper activity trumps everything else. That's what gets me to push buttons. The other stuff, set up, risk reward type things. Like, I love buying weakness. I love buying consolidation. I don't like to chase. So, you see me like this chart up here, for example. There's an indicator there on the bottom. You see it, right? Now, I'm not just trading off this indicator here. You know what I mean? I'm not just go without any flow, just trading off this indicator. But it gives me an idea of, all right, CRM, catches some sweeper activity. I think I can see some movement out of it. Risk reward wise, is it worth it? Is this more of a place to look to buy, or should I stay away? And that's where I use a lot of this sentiment stuff. But if there's no flow there, I'm not playing. So it's more of stuff I sprinkled in, because what I have learned over the course of my career is that sweeper flow and sentiment can be a deadly exacta. For those of you not horse racing fans, a deadly combination. You know what I mean? Deadly. In other words, when sweepers are doing the opposite of what the crowd is doing out there, that has been a scary combination. So that's why I look at this stuff. Bob is asking a good question. What is a red flag that gets my attention. Yeah, well, basically, there are a lot of red flags for me. You know, names like the square that we're talking about, okay? For me, now this is just me, when there's a move like this, I'm done. I'm not even looking at this. Now, again, you're probably saying, well, you're an idiot. But for me, you know, that's not something I'm interested in. Even when I was trading positions, okay? I'm not talking about short-term trades just in general. I'm talking about everything. This is something I wouldn't be interested in because, one, everybody's talking about it. It's already made its move. You know, so risk-reward wise, it's got nothing to do, you know, after the fact that it's gone higher. All right, I mean, we could all be Monday morning quarterbacks, but I want the edge for me out of the wise guy activity is to find where the momentum may be headed before this happens. So if you're a position trader, you're looking for that move and you're looking to catch that move, again, with the proper time behind it, before it happens. And that's going to come out of consolidation a lot of times and pullbacks. You know, this, for me, I have no edge in square, even with the flow, because everybody's bullish square. So that, I guess if you're asking what's the major red flag for me, is when everybody's talking about something, when sentiment's all lined up on one side of something, usually I just turn away. And I've learned to do that without it even bothering me. You know, so that's, I think, my biggest red flag. That's my biggest red flag. And then to the opposite, when names go dead and sentiment gets washed out, I become really interested. Amazon, okay? Like, a lot of times people think I just don't like the big names. That's not always the case. Amazon, nobody had an interest in Amazon, okay? So, for me, all you needed was wise guy activity there for a solid setup. Not a guaranteed winner, a solid setup, okay? That's all that was missing. You had sentiment washed out. You didn't have the retail crowd interested in a very popular name, which tells you a lot right there. And then we got Bazooka Joe, right? So, again, that's the best case scenario. But, I mean, there's an example of, you know, what I really like as opposed to what I'm not interested in. When Amazon caught the Bazooka Joe sweepers, you don't understand. Usually, if I tweet out an Amazon sweeper, tweets are doing cartwheels all over the place. I was getting brushback feedback. Oh, it's probably a short betting into hedging is bad into earnings. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's probably replacing stuff. I got so many rebuttals on the Amazon Bazooka. We were talking about it in the room that day. That I was like, oh my God. This, you know, it was as close to a lock as you're going to find, meaning that everything just lined up. So there's the two extremes right there. And here's a beauty. Again, this is a different can of worms here, but this was another one. CMG, okay? You had a lot of people trying to pick bottoms in this CMG, right? A lot of people. And we never see sweeper activity in CMG. Never, ever, ever. You'll see some call flow, but you'll never see a good-looking sweeper in CMG, ever. Lo and behold, there were guys in the room at the time talking about shorting CMG, believe it or not. You know, just traders talking in general that CMG looked like it was going to roll over, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I didn't think that there was going to be any sweeper activity. You never see sweeper activity. All of a sudden, a December sweeper comes in, good looking, laying wood, in other words, not cheap premium speculating on something, laying some decent wood, and it was at the worst point you could possibly buy this stock. Okay? Nobody, not even members who follow flow, on a day-to-day basis wanted to make a play off that CMG sweep? Nobody. So again, you talk about blocking out the noise, right? Like for me, I saw the light in this game when I realized that I don't know shit. I every trader out there, they want to become Paul Tudor Jones, right? Livermore. When I saw the light in this game, I knew that I'm no special trader. That's not happening. I'm not a good trader. I admit that to this day. I don't think I'm a good trader at all. So, what I think doesn't matter at all to me. Now, that's me. What I think matters zero. If the signals are there that I know and have found success with throughout my career, right? I believe in them. If they're there, the harder it looks to buy, probably the better the opportunity. So that's an example of blocking out the noise. But you got to understand, a lot of traders, and I was one of them, you get so wrapped up into this game, right? You get passionate about this game, you get wrapped up that you want to be knowledgeable. You want all that knowledge. You want to become Paul Tudor Jones. You want people, on Twitter to say, "Oh shit, he's a great trader." "Oh, I'm such a good trader." When you get over that, and that's blocking out the noise, and you just concentrate on what you need to do to make money. That's all that matters. It gets a little bit easier. But there's a perfect example. You're talking about noise, how to block out the noise. That's an example of how to block out the noise, right? So for me, if sentiment and sweeper flow are the two signals I have confidence in, and they came in, what do I care that traders are talking about shorting the stock and it looks like shit? What do I care about, 20 people all calling head and shoulders breakdown on a chart, right? I mean, what does that tell me? That tells me nothing. If they all see the same thing, what edge is it? What good is it? So that's basically what I look at. And like I said, I've given up on trying to become that superstar trader. It got me in trouble. And not only that, not only trader, but you got, like, I went through a period of time where I wanted to, look at the fundamentals of companies, right? Look at them, see if they had earnings growth. I went into this IBD stage where I would look at, it went out the window fast. It really did. Once I realized that it's not going to make me money, it went out the window fast. So I think that it comes down to the trader, how serious he wants to be. Does he want to be looked at as a good trader? That's what he's striving for, or does he want to do this for a living? What's more important? And that revelation will definitely, once you get there, if you do, will help it. The CMG trade, somebody's asking the premium there. Hold on, let me show you. Here it is. That guy. So this guy swept to open, 255 lot, 280 calls, 908. Yeah, so that's the bet that I like. Will get ignored by many. No, and Gregory saying, could I call it a hedge? Listen, Greg, anybody who tells you they know for sure is, out of their mind. Unless I know this guy personally, right? Unless I know this, oh yeah, this is Ralph. I know this guy. I mean, I don't know this guy. I don't know what the hell he's doing. So I just go off my experience, okay? And this type of order, the details of this order, for me, more than likely will not be a hedge. Could it be one time? Of course it could. That's why there's no guarantees in this game, right? But the odds of it being a hedge are minimal in my opinion. Okay, if he wanted to hedge this out, you know, we see it. A lot of times they'll put on some cheap shit, you know, bigger size, contract-wise, stuff like that. When I see things like this, more than not, you know, put it this way, the stocks act like it's a real bet, and that's the only thing that matters to me. You know, they're good for a trade for the most part. Now, you see more of these come in, like we saw that GBT, if you guys remember, right? Is that the symbol, GBT, that we were looking at? Yeah. You see more come in like that, the stronger, you know, the probability that it's not a hedge. Again, this is my opinion. There's no rule book out there. But when you see orders like the GBT, oh wait, let me go to this here. You know, that was the CMG sweeper times 10, basically. You know, this stuff, Greg, to answer your question, this order here, I have less confidence in, if that makes any sense to you. This block, 2500 GBT March 40 calls, I have less confidence in than these sweepers here. And as I mentioned the last time, there were more than just these three sweepers. He sprayed the living daylights out of this thing, the March 25 calls. You know? So, you know, again, I'm just sharing with you how I determine these things. And here's the other thing you got to understand. When the action is aggressive, Greg, you don't want to get, and that's that little write-up I had in the strategy section, you don't want to get too hung up on the hedge, or is it a hedge or not, or is it a bet? What you need to focus on is if they're being aggressive, okay, and meaning aggressive, they keep coming, right? They're showing urgency. What does it matter? If somebody is showing urgency and hedging by sweeping the living shit out of calls, and he's short, he is showing urgency for a reason, right? He thinks there's something that's going to create a squeeze here. Is something wrong with that for a trade setup? Some of the best trade setups are short squeezes. So that's where you don't want to get too hung up on, is it a hedge or not? Again, when you're looking at the activity that I'm talking about here, if the player's being aggressive, it really doesn't matter. Hold on. Oops, I almost minused you guys out here. Yeah, so that's basically what it comes down to. Again, aggressive. You want to see that degenerate emotion. The more aggressive, the better. Sometimes, like I said, one order will do it, and it's sufficient for a trade. You know, and that's where the other things come in. Like for me, again, it's sentiment. For you, it may be, I know guys in the room that I've traded with for a while. One guy uses Elliott waves. You know, I don't look at Elliott waves I haven't looked at Elliott waves in 25 years. But I know of one guy who's really successful, who looks at one specific pattern on Elliott waves. I don't know what the hell it is. And he uses flow as confirmation for that. You know, so if it lines up, that's his signal. For me, you know, if there's sentiment there, I don't need it to be super aggressive if there's sentiment in my favor there for a trade. So it all depends on, again, the type of trader you are and what you have confidence in. What else? Let me get to some other questions. Board on the ass, Jim, is, well, for the most part, a lot of the action, and Jim, you're a member, so you know, a lot of the action's board on the ask. Okay, so I don't want to say not everything board on the ask is important. You know, there's a lot of call buying board on the ask that I totally ignore. You know, you got to understand, guys, there's a lot of call buying and put buying on a day-to-day basis. 99% of it is useless, in my opinion. All right, but for the most part, the type of activity we look for, is bought on the ask, but that also could be misleading, Jim. You know, the service I use, Trade Alert, can show me something is bought on the ask, and you're looking at Thinkorswim or some other thing, and it's showing bid, especially if the name's illiquid, you know, depending on where the bid and offer was at the time. So that's very misleading at times. Very misleading. But usually when they're aggressive, you know, they're taking out offers. In other words, and you guys, if you Google it, or you know, you could go to the strategy section. But if you do a little homework on what the sweep order is, it really is fascinating. It's fascinating. I mean, the way I envision it, you hear me use the term like an Uzi or sprayed. That's basically what it is. They're spraying an order. I remember there was a J.P. Morgan sweeper a month or so back who sprayed every single exchange in milliseconds to sweep up $1 million worth of calls, March calls, or April calls, one or the other. Okay? Hit every exchange in milliseconds for $1 million bet. So, you know, when you understand what they're trying to do there, and you know, that's where you get an idea. The normal stuff, the bid, the ask, that's all hit or miss stuff. That's hit or miss stuff. It doesn't really matter. A lot of times you'll see a sweeper on your end that says that, you know, we like, and we say, and it may say mid, you know, in between the bid and the ask. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Let me get to some other things. I don't want to skip over some people. David, you are great. You just help people and awesome. Thank you, Mr. David. I'll pay you after the webinar. Ackman CMG, I don't know, Jim. I really don't know what the CMG guy was, you know, trying to do, what he was chasing. I just, again, the setup there, and it's something you can't plan for ahead of time, just the impression everybody, traders in the room who look at the flow we're giving, it just felt like a pretty decent risk reward there, you know, and he nailed the lows. He nailed the lows. So I remember, I think the next day it popped. Then the following day it gave back a lot of that pop, and then just slowly has grinded higher. But it goes to show you that, you know, even the worst of these things sometimes. Xavier is saying you can be a shitty trader and still make bank. Ackman is living proof. Xavier, I've seen guys who really have no clue how to trade. Like I said, I am not a good trader. I'll be the first to admit it. But I've seen players who take a professional gambling approach. A lot of people in this game who probably don't even trade and throw out slogans all day long from Jesse Livermore. Don't like to use the word gambling, but for me, I've seen mostly players who take a professional gambling approach in this game find success than talented traders. You know, risk management, stuff like that, finding an edge, sticking to that edge, rather than just good traders who can sit in a seat and trade anything. You realize, like, now they trade everything, right? Good traders trade everything. Oh, I could trade Bitcoin. I could trade Litecoin. I could trade Ethereum. I could trade Ethereum. I can't do that. All right? I'm not going to lie and say I can do that. But you're right. It's not the deciding factor in finding success in this game. What else? Let me get back here. Let me get some stuff back here that I skipped over. ZTO, Renato saying, ZTO had a nice little clever sweeper right at the ding-dong on Friday. ZTO is that China play, basically the UPS of China, something like that, for Baba and JD. And see these things, why do they look like this? I don't want them. Okay. So ZTO caught action, I think it was here, right? Yeah. So ZTO, you had to move here, caught some action, consolidate, lifted nicely, finally topped out somewhere from 15 to 18 and has had a little pull here, but there's been some buying in this pull with literally a sweeper right at the belt on Friday. Now, they do have earnings next week, so just remember that, okay? I mean, I mentioned this name last week because, again, not to beat a dead horse here, but the best entry is the initial entry, right? You hear me say that all the time. The initial entry on the ZTO was off that Jan activity back here. You guys remember it well, okay? Then remember it caught April activity. That was the second go around. And now catching some Decembers. But this is always the best spot, the initial activity. Because the probability of getting some sort of move, tradable move out of that, usually it's the market, like a market rollover or something like that, that will cost you. Usually you get some tradable move at least. And with that tradable move, you can adjust your risk, raise your stops, roll out pieces, that type of thing. So that's where the best entry risk reward wise comes in. Now after that, again, you just got to understand, you take a scale from, let's say, a 1 out of 3 rating, 3 being the best, 3 rating here, 2 rating here. Now your third go around here is a 1 rating. Still a trade out of it possibly, and could be a good one. Some of them explode, but just understand it's not initial activity. If that makes sense, okay? And again, there's a ton of names. Micron, you're talking about sweeper number 4,685 at Micron. So that's the difference. Jim is talking about OLED. That was another one, Jim, as far as like the underbelly of tech we were talking about. What a move, man. And you didn't, again, the beauty of it is you did not need earnings to catch the move. Earnings helped, but you had enough cushion there to leave a piece into earnings if you wanted to, because it was a tradable move before earnings there. But this OLED caught some unusual sweeper activity in December calls. They just recently rolled too. Up here, I don't know what to tell you up here. This is spilled milk for me now. Here you had this. You had this nice lengthy sideways. And again, you want an example of stuff I like, and rather than chase, death. No one wants to be in this right now. And that's my edge, guys. That's the edge in wise guy activity. Sideways, right? Who knows when this thing is going to go up or down out of this. But if you get aggressive activity coming in, the probability, the odds of a move in that direction go up, in my opinion, drastically. They don't go up to 100%, but they go up drastically, right? If I told you they go up at least at the minimum, instead of a 50-50 shot, 60-40, you should be able to find a way to make a living out of that, right? I mean, that's that professional gambling approach that a lot of people take. A stock could go up out of this consolidation. There's a 50-50 chance it goes up 50, right? Simple logic. If sweeper activity increases the odds of it, 60-40 at the least, and those of you who have followed sweeper activity, I'm sure would agree it's at least 60-40. That's where you got to look to capitalize. You understand? It's not inside information, even though sometimes you catch news and it feels like it is, but it's not about that. It's not about that. All that is just factored into, again, the house odds in your favor now. Let me get back to this. I am awful at navigating these questions. Right, and Jim's just saying that's exactly what it's all about. You know, just trying to lean these games, these odds in your favor, and that's what gamblers do. We spoke about that numerous times. Guys who play. I grew up in a gambling world my whole life, from the thoroughbreds, the ponies, to ball games. Ball games was huge. My father was a degenerate gambler. He was around all professional gamblers. From when I was little, I was around that crowd. And, a big misconception there is that wise guy activity in sports, they're fixing games. They're not fixing games. Sometimes that happens to be the case. But they just have an edge, and where those house odds that nail you time and time again are in their favor in the slightest way. And they capitalize off that. Brent is saying COT. COT, some real interesting action there. Let me give you the negative. Can I give you the negative first? Instead of, there's all positive. The negative in COT is this. Are you in it, Brent, yet? Or that's the problem. If you're not in it yet, okay, so you're in it. But if you're not in it yet, this is the problem. Okay, look at it. So that's why I mentioned in the tweet, there may be a pullback, a shake and bake, a breather, and that would be totally normal because this thing's been up every single day, a little at a time, but something crazy is going on here, I think. There's been aggressive activity here. There's been aggressive activity in this thing. And I tried day trading. I made a little bit of money Friday. Thursday, I took a loss. There was one time prior to that I took a scratch because this thing doesn't really move. So we'll get news on Monday. COT, activist stake, blah, 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 gapping up to $25, and I want to smash a screen. You know what I'm talking about, Brent. PANW, they have earnings. PANW has had action, had a big bet, couple big bets, but has earnings. Aren't there earnings? Who asked that question? Mr. Yoon, isn't there earnings? Monday. Oh. Yeah, there was, here, let me see. I don't, maybe there was put action. I think it was just call action. Oh, wait, look at this. I don't even know what I'm doing here. Yeah, blocks. You see the blocks? They're blocks. So, earnings related. I'm not, you want an earnings play? I'll give you an earnings play if you want an earnings play. This name. W-Day. No, I didn't even realize she was up again Friday, but I thought you had a little dip there. See, these dips don't last long, man. Look at this. Right here, here. Some nice dip. And look, you see how these things snap back, the dips? Like, I don't know, that's, I think that's a huge plus when you're trading these things. You get a little dip into the buy zone on an entry side there, and you get pops where you got some cushion. Rather than buying the highs, you buy the highs, right? You buy this, and you get sucked out. Where you buy these little dips, the problem is they don't always come. A lot of these names don't have these little dips. But anyway, W-Day, if this thing didn't have earnings, it'd be probably one of the best plays on the board. Similar to like Splunk and what was another one that had earnings? Here's the W-Day. This was tied, I think, 19 million. That was a block back in September. But here is the W-Day action. And there's been smaller sweeper activity that's not here on the board. Here they initially hit it 108.50 on 1027. Had 1027. Yeah, see? Look at this spot. And then you had a tradable move. Topped out, back down. But here's the initial entry here. What was the price? 108? Oh, it must have been up on. Oh yeah, it was up on the day. It was up on the day. So you got a little bit higher now. Honestly, I didn't see this move the last 2 days. I thought it, but the market had a rally too, because I saw the pullback. I thought it might be still. So maybe you get another little come in here if you want to roll the dice. Earnings. That was a $200 stock a while back. W day, really? Work day. I get it confused. You know what I get it confused with? Sometimes don't ask me why. The Wayfair, which has nothing to do with each other, but yeah, the action. Let me see. You could probably see. Let's see, private Twitter, what kind of mood it's in today. The search I'm talking about. There was even some smaller activity in this workday that was decent. Man, I got that cough. Small put seller. Oh, that was a little guy. Oh, these expired. November's. Yeah, you had a little put selling. I didn't even realize that. You had a little put selling and small call sweep in November's. That was recent. You had a little pop here. That was, wow, that was right here. That was down here. See? But, yeah, other than that, you know, the big orders are on there, right there on the board I showed you in W Day. 2 Decembers right here. They've been adding to that. I don't know what the total is they got there, but I can find. I'll post it on Twitter later. Valero, did it catch big orders? I haven't really paid a couple oil names. So some big orders. Valero, oh, it traded ex-div, didn't it? Valero wasn't clean buying, I don't think. Was it? I think it was ex-div related, if I remember correctly. Valero. I don't think it was legit buying. But I could be wrong. Nothing on the board here. A couple oil names, if you guys are interested. My favorite name, I keep telling you guys, is PXD, only because they've stuck with it. Everything else, they don't really stick with. There's no commitment there, you know? And they all have traded higher over the last month. But here you got, basically, we were talking about this, if you remember. They were buying this pull, okay? They actually started early, or a little early, in November, December's back here. This was at the end of August. And have stuck with it throughout. What we saw after that, you had a nice move. Then you saw some leap 2019 call sweepers heat up. Okay, topped out, had a little bit of a breather, and then the action heat up again. So the good thing is you got a little bit of a breather here now. So if you have an interest, now is the time. You know, I mean, my opinion, again, it's not initial activity, but out of all the oil names, this is the one flow that stood out to me. You had others that caught decent bets, but they never really came back for. CNQ, that caught a real nice bet. Cheaper levels, but again, was a nice bet. You had one on Friday, what is it, CNX, that caught a block, size block. That gapped up. Here's another name, Schlumberger. They bought the Junes, so a lot of time there. But you have new lows in Schlumberger. I don't know, too much about what's going on there. Why is this going south while the rest of them are going higher? Anybody know? EA looks fine. February's predominantly is what they're buying, so you got some time there. Had a little bit of news, I think, Friday, but I wouldn't make too much out of it. I would like to see a little more sweeper activity there. There was a good-looking Jan sweeper. I actually played EA, all kidding aside. I played EA 3 different times at the close of the week. Well, Wednesday, I think it was Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I played EA. And on Wednesday, if you can believe it, held it overnight and sold it into the gap up just because they moved pretty decent the next day. You know, but the thing is you got Febs. Here's a name too, by the way, that fits that mold. For some reason, nobody likes EA. I guess Star Wars. Honestly, I don't even want to hear it. Don't even bother typing it. I don't want to hear it. I'm not into video games anyway. But the retail crowd hates it, and there's been some size buying in Feb calls. So Feb is not next week. Feb is not next month. Feb is next year. So keep that in mind when you buy it. Right now, this is all noise. You know? This is all noise. So I might what? I might revisit it even for a swing if I could catch. If a Feb sweeper comes in next week, I might swing it. Just again, because sentiment's so washed out. Like EA was an animal. EA is an animal. And just recently caught some news. And this is not a crash. This is a little consolidation here, breather. I mean, look at Take-Two. You want to see a stock that's due for consolidation? Jesus. Look at that one. So, Comcast is interesting. I think you got time. Again, if you want to trade it, you could buy the weakness. You see action come into weakness, like I did. Stock was down a buck and change. They came in. They swept. I had a day trade on the equity. I bought some Fed calls thinking I was going to hold them. But the stock rallied that day a buck and then was up a buck and change the next day, and the calls had a nice turnaround on them. And I got a quick trigger figure, and anytime I see green, I yank it. But I still got some longer term holds. SGMS, you know that one that I keep telling you guys about? I got some leaps there. That's new highs. She's an animal. Scientific Games. Crazy action. What other names? What name are you talking about, Vamshi? Continuous flow. See, but the flow you're talking about and the flow I'm talking about may be two different animals. You already mentioned the name that is not even on my radar, flow-wise. So I don't know. The flow you may be looking at may not be the same type of flow I like to look at. That's where I think a lot of miscommunication comes in here. You know, you guys see people maybe on Twitter talking about what they like flow-wise. It's not always the same. Not always the same. I guarantee you a lot of traders you follow did not see or did not even pay attention to the CMG call sweeper or buff or any of that stuff. IGT, what do you mean dead? As far as too much of a move? Yeah, buying? Are you talking about buying it here? If that's what you mean by dead, Bob, yeah. You know, I mean, you're chasing, no? What are you looking to do here, Bob? Oh, no. Recent flow. They've been buying it left and right. Now, some of it rolling. Really active, IGT. Jan and April's. Let me see if any of it. Hold on, I can find it on it. Oh, shit. I hit the wrong button. Let's see. Here's this, this is the IGD flow from late last week. What are these? November's, they expire. Oh, that's before earnings. They scored on those. Jan 25s. December 30s. December 30s. Oh, here's what they added. 3600 Jan 30s. 700 April 30s. So yeah, no, the flow is a small put seller. The flow is ridiculous. I thought you meant as far as um, starting a position here. Now we're getting a little too crazy. See, and again, this is another example. You guys remember IGT? We've been talking about a lot on these webinars. Okay, death, right? Dead quiet, stock doing nothing. What was going on? Sweeper, sweeper, sweeper. Stock still didn't do much. Just, slow grind higher. Sweeper. She got loose. Okay? You don't want to chase the top of this move. You don't want to come in here. You want to wait for a breather, right? Maybe the action goes dead a bit and then starts to pick up. And you remember the last two webinars we spoke about that happened, but you have earnings in the way. So there's your earnings. Last webinar we left off IGT, a lot of buying's been coming in. You got earnings coming, and there's your earnings move. All right, so now up here you spilled milk. People who are members that you see talking about this already have existing positions, have runners, have that type of thing. To start a position up here, again, I'm talking about position. Not my type of thing. OCLR, there's some call activity there, but I wouldn't pay too much attention to that. The only significant activity that I've seen in this name was put sellers that called and screamed bottom over here. So, how much upside is left, I have no idea. There was some call activity, Jan's, but, this name catches call activity. It's nothing exceptional. But the put sellers told you there is the likelihood of a bottom there at least, and, limited downside, some decent upside potential. A lot of people like that type of trade. Yeah, and Jim's saying it's a buyout candidate, has been and rumored for a long time. I think that's why it always seems to catch call flow. That's the problem. There's always speculation around it. But the put selling is the most important thing there, We spoke about this last week, remember? The last webinar, the put selling. That's where, hold on a second. That's the only thing I would pay attention to there. Somebody mentioned Comcast, all that flow in the stock doing nothing. I don't know exactly what he means by that. Comcast actually had a nice lift. And here, again, here's a perfect example, guys, okay? Here, Comcast caught heavy leap activity, okay? Some really good-looking 2019 call sweeper activity. 2019. You got a long time, all right? Then, around that activity, there were some December, Jan, smaller call sweepers, all right? So the way to play it is simple, just what the flow is telling you. The biggest action, the sharpest action is in leaps. So if you want to make a bet off that, you're looking long term. Anything that happens in the interim is noise. Okay? If he was playing for a move this week, he wouldn't be playing leaps. Can it happen in 2 months? Yeah. A lot of times it happens in 2 months. We've seen it. But you're making a play on that 2019 call activity with the commitment that you're going to leave that thing alone and not pay attention to daily fluctuations. All right? Or you say to yourself, all right, there's sharp leap call sweeper activity. There's also some smaller December Jan activity that I think I could get a trade out of. You got your trade. Okay? Now, it goes back. You want your cake and eat it too? You think you're going to nail lows and you're just going to get a straight rip higher in December? Well, good luck to you. You got to be realistic. You want the big move out of Comcast, you got to be in leaps. Okay, especially Comcast. We're talking about an under pressure media name. If it happened sooner, it happened sooner. We've seen it happen sooner, right? DHI, the animal. But you know what? The same thing was being said about DHI. The same exact thing, guys. The same thing. Okay? Here's what happened in DHI. DHI, which has been one of their favorite names. Where's the... Okay, here it is. So DHI, what happened was right here. Okay? Out of consolidation. You see it, right? Consolidation. Right here, we saw those Bill Miller leaps. It's probably Bill Miller buying all the home builders, but we saw sweeps in leaps. Okay? This, Lennar, Pulte, all three of them. And we also saw some smaller call activity, similar to the Comcast, in front month stuff. Okay? So you had, again, the quick trade you could have made the play on, or if you want the big move, you gotta play long term off those leaps. Okay, that's the only interpretation you can get out of that. You can create stuff in your mind and tell yourself different things, but you're making up stories. Okay, so what happened was DHI, you got the quick rip, people, that wasn't enough, and then you got this consolidation here. And people were complaining about the DHI flow. And complaining about the DHI flow. And shaking out of the DHI flow. And now we're suicidal. You know, there's nothing else that could be said about that, you know? I understand. You see these guys on Twitter who are nailing 900% in weeklies, and you think it's real. You can believe it all you want. That's not being done consistently, so forget it. The big move, especially in the option game, if you want to find success looking for them, one, you got to risk manage properly. Two, you got to give yourself enough time. If you don't allow yourself the time to catch the big move, more than not, this is what's going to happen. You know, and the longer the consolidation, when it finally gets out, this was another one, by the way, like we were talking about the WDC, where there was some lengthy consolidation and finally got out. And look at this thing. It's up every day, man. You see this thing, Jim? I mean, it's outrageous. And the flow has been nonstop. The flow has been nonstop in DHI. The other ones look good, too. DHI has been the one they keep coming back for. Pulte, look at Pulte. There's been a little bit of flow nowhere near the DHI. And actually, Lennar, which I think made an acquisition of something, had a little bit of a setback here, but then right back at highs. Lennar mostly leaps. There was a buyer recently in Lennar. Let me find them for you, just in case you're interested. Let me see. Right here. December 60s at 58 and change on 11/8. 11/8. Oh, that was, yeah, not too long ago. Yeah. Why is this in between the candles? I hate candlesticks. Did I ever tell you how much I hate candlesticks? But I know a lot of you guys like candlesticks, and the members like candlesticks. These candlesticks, I never know what the hell the stock is doing with these candlesticks. What other names we got going on here? Let's rattle through a couple more before we call it a Saturday. Or yeah, some good questions, strategy. I love the strategy questions because Flo can spit out nothing but winners, and if you don't know what the hell to do with them or play them properly, useless. Hang on, let me figure this out. Every time I click on a question, it takes me right back to the start of the morning. Jim is saying, watch out for the Fed and these whole builders, rate hikes. Yeah, I mean, listen, at this point, you can't the DHI and the Pulte, you can't buy them up there now. You can't buy them. Quick turnover trades, like we were saying. That goes into the category of PayPal and Square. I don't even really pay attention to what group they're in. The price action there has been the same as that. Gregory saying take a peek at Facebook. Yeah. Greg, Facebook, believe it or not, for a trade, I really thought we were going to see a good-looking sweeper in Facebook. Don't tell me. I don't know why. It was my gut, basically. And instead we saw them nickel and dime, and it pissed me off because I wanted to day trade it off a nice missile or something like that. And we just saw them nickel and dime, and we still haven't seen anything spectacular. You see, here's what I'm hoping for, okay? I'm hoping for some sort of shake and bake, like kind of what we saw before this move, and sweepers to come in. That's what I'm hoping for, Greg. There's been sweeper activity. There's been buying, okay? The problem is I wanted to see real deal action in this name because, it's been catch and flow forever, and I want a high confidence trade. You know what I mean? Trade. I'm not talking about buy and hold from here. Trade. Into weakness preferably. This would have been a perfect spot. I thought they were going to hit this thing here. I really did. But for me now, I would want to see it either stay dead or pull again, where the riffraff out there really get their hopes up, and then sweeper activity come in. Netflix. A la Netflix. You remember what happened in Netflix, Greg? So you had this. Let me get the Netflix. You couldn't draw it up any better, Netflix. Netflix, sweepers went dead. Okay, Facebook, they're still sweeping. Netflix, sweepers went dead for a while. And you had this here, right? The whole retail world was playing breakout here. They thought it was easy money. Okay? I love when they pull it on them there. I love it. Okay? Because a lot of times when they do that, off that weakness, that's when real sweepers show up. And they didn't show up until they showed up. And you guys remember, they showed up right. Look at that. Look at that entry. Does it get better than that entry for a trade? Look at that. Perfect. And then, the stock, I think, ran $4 or $5 the next day. So you had a nice trade out of it. And we'll see where she goes from here. But that's what I'm looking at off of the Facebook, Greg. I want something like that. I want something like that. I don't know if we're going to get, because Facebook hasn't really consolidated long. Remember Apple? Apple did the same thing. Apple, you had this, and then right here, the whole retail world, breakout, right? And pull. Sat there, frustrated the daylights out of everybody, and then sweeper started to heat up, and you got a runaway. So, but the problem is, here's the problem I run into a lot too. Like when you don't have that, like this is more of a consolidation than Facebook, but if you don't have that much of a consolidation, you get into trouble if you're looking for something as big as this. The setup is for just a trade, like the Netflix. So in other words, Netflix, the way to play it would be you wait for that setup, it comes, they hit Netflix, they hit it hard, you're in, you get this, you lock it in and roll it out. You know what I mean? Or lock it in, leave a runner type thing, depending on what month you're in. Now this Netflix, if she hangs around here, and it's a possibility, Netflix, they usually when they show up once, they come again. And if this thing hangs around here or even breaks these lows, and we see sweepers again, you got another setup there, in my opinion. Some traders out there, this is not enough, especially in these names, but usually it's the smaller retail player that is looking for a 50-point move off a Netflix entry. This, I'll take these trades all day long. You know, you're buying, especially on the option side, you're buying calls into weakness, off weakness, when nobody wants them. They're giving them away. So you're not getting robbed, one. Two, they hit the Netflix, the stock rallied a buck and change, I know because I day traded it. So you had a buck and change cushion going into the next day. She ran $4 or $5 the next day. So that's more than enough for me. And then, you know, you got to, whatever, you leave a runner, you roll out a piece to try to catch the bigger move, that sort of thing. But that's the setup I'm looking at in Facebook. Maybe the consolidation, you know, she's been doing this for a while, like, you know, just grinding and slowly chopping around. Meanwhile, Zuckerberg is selling every last share he's got, holding it down. AMD, I haven't really seen anything too special in AMD lately. The action in AMD, if you remember in the part we spoke about the last couple of weeks, basically a lot of the quality stuff rolled out. They rolled everything out. There was action Friday off Chatter. Yeah. So I have no interest in that. I don't want that. I want AMD dead here, no Chatter, and them to show up with a couple missiles. You know, they did that similar. I don't think it was it this. I think it was this one, but it might have been one of these drawer downs. They showed up bigly. So that's you know, I know I said that to you last time, but that's what I'm still looking for out of the AMD. The chatter, the rumor stuff, I'm not interested in. I'd rather it be quiet. JD, you had earnings there as well. JD catches a lot of flow, always catches flow, and it's a tough trade. Tough trade. JD, similar to like that Twitter setup, I think flow-wise, weakness, and you have to see enough flow. There's JD call buyers every other day. There's a lot of action in JD. Once upon a time, JD was quiet. That's not the case anymore. You know, if you remember, you guys, when we started this sweep series, do you guys remember that? When JD was catching that action before earnings, that was here, right? If you guys remember this? So you had, it doesn't look it now, but there was like lengthy consolidation. Stock was doing nothing here. But as this thing was just sitting there chopping around, there was a ton of sweeper activity. Ton. Every day. Sweeper. Stock would have a little bit of a rally, then just pull right back in everybody's face. Sweepers again. A little bit of a rally, pull back in their face. Sweepers again. Sweepers again. And then, this was earnings here. So then it got loose. But since then, there's been a lot of action in JD. A lot. And Baba too. I think Baba still falls into the category where if you see action on dips, you could look to try to take advantage of it. You know, for quick trades. Like, look, say you get this little pull, sets up a nice entry there. You see some activity come in there, and usually there will be. They sweep constantly into Baba weakness. You know, you get a little bit of a ramp to sell into. You know, even the little pullbacks. You see, look, 1, 2, 3, pullback. You get some sweeper activity. You got a little window to sell. Pullback. But other than that, these things are tough, man. These things are tough. These things are tough now. I mean, look at them. Look what they look like. Like, what can you expect of Baba? You think she gets loose like this now from here? and you think you catch that before you catch some sort of rest or pull, maybe. I mean, you call this consolidation up here. It's tough. I like it off pulls. Does that make sense, David? You know, I like it. You get a pullback and you see them support it, and you look for entries there. So buying red, like most everything. Most everything. But it falls into that category. It's just been too hot with a ton of action. Not much of an other range there. What other names? We got a lot of good names here. What other names we got? WDay we spoke about. COT we spoke about. CMG we spoke about. Comcast. Goldman Sachs, Jim mentioned earlier. The banks in general are interesting. Goldman, we haven't seen any flow, smaller flow, but she's ripe for it. She's ripe for it. Goldman, everybody was calling for the Goldman break up here, right? They were looking for highs. So you got a little bit of this now. On a red day with some action, probably a decent entry. She's the rarest one to catch action out of the bunch. But when she does, she could catch some big ones. There's been some big bets in Goldman, and they stick out like a sore thumb. One of the names recently, I know you guys probably don't want to hear it, Wells Fargo has seen action. Wells Fargo, if you remember the missiles, remember we spoke about those missiles that came in right at the lows here? Okay, had that huge ramp, came down on news, they hit it again, nice ramp, down, and some buying again here. So Wells Fargo's been a name. I know it's been the worst of them. I know. Bank of America recently saw the most aggressive activity into this weakness that morning. Crazy action. And then had a nice rip that day. Maybe they come back for that. Let it cool off a little. You see, cooling off nicely. And, you know, Citigroup. Bank of America, by the way, the Febs are seeing the best action. Some Jans, Febs seeing the best action. Citigroup, we're seeing March buying. So a lot of the stuff is further out, you know? Yeah, Bank of America catches a lot of sweeper activity. A lot of sweeper activity. But usually they hit up these, you know, Wells Fargo in the mix too. Citi, JPM, we saw a little bit of action in JPM late last week. So they look interesting. Maybe they could hang around here a little. Yeah, Brent's saying he's in the Junes in Citigroup. That's perfect. That's perfect, Brent. I think just time you need, you know, just time. But you want to see this. You want to see this. They got too hot. You know, it almost felt like they never were going to pull back, right? The banks were so hot. Everybody loved them. There were people coming on CNBC. Oh, even up here, you got to own the banks. It's their time. And then all of a sudden, the news changes as these things, the price action gets a little shaky. So once they breathe, they come in, you want to start paying closer attention to the flow. And like Brent pointed out, he's focusing on Junes. That's a lot of the action has been in June's, March. So I think that's the play on them now. If they hang around here a little bit and we see some front month action come in, maybe we got a trade out of them, you know? But I think like Brent pointed out, and he does many a times on here, he's in the right spot with Junes. RH, did you see that thing? I got to look at that stuff too for next week, these investor meetings, analyst meetings. RH caught that risk reversal. I didn't even know, you know, well, they didn't have earnings. They had that investor day. But RH, you had that risk reversal and sweeper activity here, had a little lift, then a shake and bake, and then they raised guidance. What a move. What a move. Let me see if I could find that risky just out of curiosity here. Hold on. If I could find. Oh shoot, what'd I do? But yeah, you got to watch for these analyst conferences. They come out of nowhere. If you don't know they're coming up. Let me see. Can I find it in this? I think this is just maybe the tack on it here. Let's see. Ah, that's not it. Hold on. I got to go to this. Oh, you know what? Oh, no, no. I'm not logged in. Wall Street Jesus. Twitter. You're getting their moods here. Just to get an idea of what they were playing. Let's see. Oh, no. I didn't post it on there. It had a risk reversal, a nice one. I got to track it down right before it. Oh, I got Red Hat. Oh, my God. Thank you. What an idiot I am. What would I do without you, Jim? I'm brain dead. You know, brain dead? I didn't post it. Oh, I posted it just, it was a December bull combo. You see here? It was a good-looking bull risk reversal for December, and that was on November 13th. Right. It's the RHT, by the way, is another name with good flow. But besides the point. So, yeah. So right before this, you had a risk reversal and some action, and then you had the analyst day. Red Hat. Good segue into Red Hat. Look at this name. A lot of people don't talk about this name. Look at this name. And Red Hat doesn't catch size. Red Hat catches those sweepers that I point out to you guys, the ones I like. Small lot, decent wood. A lot of people don't talk about this name. Animal. No dip. No dips in this thing. This was the only little breather off the gap. It gapped up on earnings, and you had this little consolidation here, and then just got loose again. RHT. All right, did I miss anybody's names or questions? Chet saying, do you think those R bull sweepers have given up? I don't know if they've given up. I think what happened, Chet, is that they got caught in this tranny waterfall. You know what I mean? And it just, yeah, that's what losers look like. There's always some sort of excuse. Again, I point out this name because it's rare when you see action like this look this bad. Usually you see it if the market rolls over. You know what I mean? You very rare. But these things got hit pretty hard. JB Hunt, that was another name that caught some real nice action on the way up. Not as bad as the writer, but beat up out of that consolidation. We'll see if, here's what I would wait for. I would want to see them come in again aggressively and look for an entry. And, you know, a lot of times you shy away from this because they've been wrong. It's not always the smartest thing to do. Because they could come in and hit it even heavier now. You know what I mean? They can hit it even heavier now. And you got a nice pull. So it's worth keeping an eye on. I wouldn't average down or anything like that yet till I see them come in. The November spec action that we saw Thursday, which they flipped half of it anyway, was cheap spec action, I guess, into the Tesla thing. Oh, you have Jan. All right, so you got time there. Yeah, I just think, and they do it. Listen, the trannies have done this several times now. You know, you get these polls. Listen, the last time this thing caught action was over here, and there was some pull, but not as bad as this. You know, she did a whole lot of nothing, and then just exploded. We'll see. We'll see. You know, news can save you. You don't rely on that, but you know, if you're in them, you sit in them, and you wait. Remember the CAVM? That wasn't looking too hot. Well, again, not as bad, but you know, it looked like it was ready to roll over, and then boop, news. So you never know. And when the action is good looking, you got a better chance in seeing something like that happen. The writer, like I said, they opened the largest position of open interest, which is noteworthy, but it is a loser. ALGN, Maria, I don't know. Did we see anything recent? We haven't seen anything recent. We saw let me show you the bet. Because there was one bet in LG. I think it's this. Let's see. Let me see if I can narrow it down. Put calls here. No, see? We haven't seen anything, it looks like, from here since September. ALGN, I remember a bet, though, there recently. Not that recent, but not too long ago. But we haven't seen anything. What do they do, this ALGN? Maybe I'm thinking of another company. What do they do? Yeah, I'm not sure. Oh, yeah, teeth, right? Teeth? Yeah. We saw, that's what we did. We saw some way out of the money spec action, probably into earnings. That's what it was. Maria, that's it. Teeth, I remember it. That's where I know the symbol. Invisible braces. Gotcha. Yeah, we saw some way out of the money stuff. But, sometimes here and there we'll see some action, like you see on here. Oops. But usually they are, see, like this one was what, 178s? It was 178 at the time. They were playing 190s. Like, that's the type of action we'll see. No problem. No problem. But yeah, any action in that name is noteworthy. Tesla, similar to like Facebook, small stuff. But, there's a lot of noise there too, Tesla. Nothing, let me see, anything hit the board in Tesla? I know they played into the event. I know there was some flow. Let's see. Tesla. November's, that expired. 12/8 when the stock was 315. 11/3, those expired. 302. Look at the price range of these things. 324. Yeah, nothing. Post earnings, a little bit of flow you could see here, but this here was into the event, right? 11/13 when the stock was 315. Let's see something. Oh, so that was down here. The event was there. So that was into the event. Yeah. Wow. So, yeah, there was, if you guys remember, there was this action pre-earnings. You had these big put buyers, which, you don't know, could be protection or whatever the case. Big dollar amount. Then you had a real good-looking sweeper. If you guys remember, we were talking about it, into earnings. But, that's the problem. How do you make sense out of this action? It's earnings action. It's earnings flow. But since there you could see, yeah, Tesla, I told you guys, Tesla is one name that I like the action when they come in, like it has been, into weakness. I hate the chase in Tesla. If you didn't have that event, you had a nice entry there on that order right there. But you had an event you had to hold into, and you're rolling the dice. Where was it? This guy right here. See this sweeper? That's not a bad bet right there. That was on 11/13. The rest is all shit. So that's what I would look at. Weakness. It's sold off Friday. Let it come in. And then if we see an order like that, that's what I would look for. As opposed to an order like that into strength. Yeah, she was up 10 yesterday, I know. But, it's a crazy stock. It's a crazy stock. She was up 10 and she almost went red. She almost went red. Yeah, 11/13 was a nice entry there. 11/13 was a nice entry. She was strong that day, if I remember correctly, after the order. And or the next day, and then had a nice little push. And that's why probably there was a lot of profit taking, you know? Yeah, exactly. Playing the momentum into the event, off the event, and then they lock it in. See, and again, when there's no catalyst out there, yeah, that's a different story. Then you say to yourself they're playing for something else. But when there's events, earnings, they're playing off that stuff. All right, boys and girls, I appreciate you hanging out with me again Saturdays, as I always do. You know where to find me if you have any questions at all. Hit myself up, Lucci up. Again, go to wallstreetjesus.com if you have any questions about what we discussed today, anything at all. All right. And other than that, if I don't speak to any of you, enjoy your Thanksgiving week. Good luck next week. And I'll talk to you guys soon. All right. I'll see you guys next Saturday. We'll do it again. When's Thanksgiving, by the way? When's Thanksgiving? What day is it fall on? Thursday. Ah. So we got the Thanksgiving week. All right. Happy Thanksgiving, guys. Enjoy your holiday and good luck next week.